In 1905, an American millionaire built a 60-room mansion on a low point of land outside Port Antonio as a home for his wife, an heiress to the Tiffany fortune. It had marble floors, electric lights, and running water, and within a generation it stood open to the sky. In 1936, the roof of the mansion collapsed. That is folly, and it is number one on this list. Before we reach it, there is an island a film star owned that the jungle has taken back. A railway that carried a whole country and then stopped in a single month. A hospital made of iron sitting empty beside the sea, and a Spanish capital that was walked away from almost 500 years ago. None of these places are hidden. Most of them are unlocked. If this is the kind of record you want more of, the subscribe button is right there. Jamaica is a small island that has left an unusual number of its buildings standing exactly where it abandoned them, and what follows is 12 of the places time never came back for. We start at 12 and work toward the most famous ruin on the island. Number 12. The garden the empire planted in the clouds, Cinchona, in the Blue Mountains of St. Andrew. In 1868, the government of Jamaica began cultivating cinchona in earnest, racing the Dutch in Java for a secure supply of quinine to fight malaria, and it laid out its gardens on a ridge at 5,000 feet above the sea. The venture faltered when oversupply collapsed the international price of the bark, and the plantations were left to the mist. In the early 20th century, the New York Botanical Garden used the site as its tropical research station, and then that too ended. In 1988, Hurricane Gilbert took the last two signature cinchona trees the garden had been named for. The old garden buildings are still up there in the cloud at the end of a road most vehicles cannot finish. Number 11. The sugar works the forest was given back, Kenilworth, in the parish of Hanover. The estate first appears in the crop accounts of 1757 under its old name, Maggotty, owned by John Blagrove, then a miner, producing 132 hogsheads of sugar, and the stoneworks raised on it are counted among the most impressive 18th century industrial buildings in Jamaica. The boiling house, the distillery, and a two-story limestone building with a semicircular flight of stairs climbing to an arched doorway still stand in the pasture. By 1882, the property held 2,560 acres, and 2,060 of them were already listed as wood and ruinate. Beyond the works is a small walled burial ground with a slab for Thomas Blagrove, who died on the 8th of July, 1755, in the 22nd year of his life. The stairs still climb to the arched door, and the door opens on nothing. Number 10. The islands a superpower borrowed and never gave back. The Goat Islands, St. Catherine. Less than a mile off the Hellshire coast sit two wooded cays that a governor of Jamaica, Sir Thomas Lynch, owned in the 1680s. On the 2nd of September 1940, the United States took a 99-year lease on them under the Destroyers for Bases Agreement and built a seaplane base, dredging 2,800,000 cubic yards from the shoals and burying 75,000 gallons of fuel in 11 underground steel tanks. On the 28th of December 1949, the American flag came down and the base locked shop. On paper, the lease runs until the 2nd of September 2039. The Jamaican iguana that lived on the cays was thought extinct there by the 1940s, and the islands are now a protected sanctuary that requires permission to visit. The tanks are still under the sand. Number 9. The house where an island was set free, Old King's House, Spanish Town. Built in 1762 as the official residence of the governors of Jamaica, it was the grandest building of the old capital, and on the 1st of August 1838, the Proclamation of Emancipation was read from its steps, officially ending slavery in Jamaica. In 1872, the capital moved to Kingston, and the house began its long wait. In 1925, a fire destroyed the structure, leaving only the main eastern facade and the stables. The stables now hold the People's Museum of Craft and Technology, and the brick front stands with daylight where the rooms were. The facade is still on the square, holding up nothing. Number 8. The fort that was left watching an empty sea, Fort Rocky, on the Palisadoes near Port Royal. Built around 1888, it was used through both world wars to defend the coastline, its guns set against enemy submarines and warships, and when the wars ended, the soldiers did not come back. There is not much left today, and it draws few visitors, a shell of batteries and barracks in the scrub between the harbor and the open sea. The gun positions are still there, aimed at nothing. Number 7. The castle nobody can explain. Colbeck Castle, St. Catherine. In open country north of Old Harbor stands the largest single building group to survive from 17th century Jamaica, a brick and limestone pile with tower-like corners, associated with Colonel John Colbeck, who came with the English invasion of 1655 and died in 1682, and almost nothing else about it is known. The earliest record that even names the building is a property advertisement from 1896, and no colonial document says who designed it, when it was finished, or whether anyone ever lived in it. It was abandoned before anyone thought to write down why. The walls still stand to their full height in the open field. Quick thing before the second half, drop a comment with the parish you are watching from and tap the like if the list is earning it, because what is left is heavier than what is behind us, and number 1, the mansion a fortune built and a single generation lost, is still ahead. Number 6, the railway a whole country stopped riding. The first line was laid in 1845, running 14.5 miles from Kingston to Angels near Spanish Town, one of the earliest railways anywhere in the Americas, and the system grew until it stitched the island together. It carried its tragedies too. On the 30th of July 1938, a train bound for Montego Bay jumped the rails at Balaclava and embedded itself in the mountainside, killing 32 and injuring 70. Then, in October of 1992, all passenger traffic on Jamaica's railways abruptly ceased, and every station on the island closed at once. A revival in 2011 ended again in August of 2012, and the Georgian station houses were left to traders or to disrepair. The rails are still in the grass across 100 miles of the island. Number 5. The hospital made of iron, Port Royal. Behind the old garrison wall stands a 2-story building unlike anything else in the Caribbean. An iron-framed hospital fabricated at an ironworks in Bradford, England, shipped across the Atlantic, and erected at Port Royal, measuring 380 feet by 56, raised around 1818 on the foundations of an earlier hospital built in 1743 and destroyed by fire in 1812, using the labor of enslaved Africans. The naval station it served closed in 1905, and the building has stood largely vacant since 1988, when a hurricane tore through it. Locals say ghosts sigh in the building. The iron columns are still carrying the empty floors. Number 4. The capital that was abandoned first, New Seville, St. Anne. Above St. Anne's Bay, on the ground where a Taino village stood when the Spanish came ashore, the first Spanish capital of Jamaica was founded around 1509, and around 1534 the settlers simply left it, moving inland to found the town that became Spanish Town. A church begun in 1525 was never finished. The site became a sugar plantation, and an African burial ground lies in its soil, its full size never mapped. Nearly 500 years after the first abandonment on this list, visitors picnic on the lawns above it. The unfinished church is still in the ground. Number 3. The island a film star owned, Navy Island, Portland. 64 acres of green sit in the mouth of Port Antonio's harbor, an island the Royal Navy once used and that the actor Errol Flynn bought in 1942 after being marooned in Port Antonio, hosting extravagant parties and planting palm trees that still stand today. After him came a resort, the Admiralty Club, and its end was stranger than its beginning. The staff rose against the owners, commandeered the 2 boats that ferried guests, and held the couple captive until they were paid off. Legal requirements for public access drove away every later investor, and in time the government bought out the remaining titles and closed Navy Island. It is uninhabited now, the villas and the pool going under the vines. The palms he planted are still swaying over it. Number 2. The town the sea has kept for 3 centuries, Port Royal. On the 7th of June, 1692, at about 11:43 in the morning, the sand under the richest port in the Americas turned to liquid, and 2/3 of the town, about 33 acres, slid into the sea in minutes, taking roughly 2,000 people at once, and 3,000 more in the days after. The drowned streets settled onto the harbor floor and stayed there, and in July of 2025 the sunken city was inscribed on the World Heritage List, with barely 40% of it ever surveyed. Time forgot no place on this island more completely, because the rest of the world forgot it was even there. The streets are still under the harbor where they fell. Number 1. The mansion a fortune built and a generation lost. Folly, Portland. This is the one we opened on. In 1905, Alfred Mitchell, a businessman from Connecticut, built an elaborate home on Folly Point for his wife Annie Tiffany, heiress to the Tiffany fortune, a replica of a Roman villa with 60 rooms, marble floors, a steam-powered generator, electric lights and running water, with an indoor swimming pool fed by a wind-powered pump, its own power station, stables and a menagerie, and monkeys that were given the run of a nearby cay that has been called Monkey Island ever since. The legend says the cement was mixed with seawater. The house began to crumble at once, and the bride cried what a folly and sailed away. The record is quieter. The Mitchells lived in the home until Alfred died in 1911. Annie stayed on until the First World War drew her back to America in 1914, and the mansion was sold, then abandoned by its new owners. In 1936, the roof collapsed, and the legend grew over the ruin the way the bush did. After a drowned city at number 2, the top of this list is a single house, because no ruin in Jamaica is more photographed, more visited, or less understood by the people who stand in it. It sits free and unmanaged on government land, and the white columns are still standing against the sea. That is 12 places one island walked away from. A garden in the clouds, a borrowed island, a railway, a capital, a castle with no story, and a mansion with the wrong one, most of them open, most of them unlocked, all of them exactly where they were left. 12 is nowhere near the full count here, or on any island near it. Stay subscribed and we will go looking for the rest.